What a night it's been around the 740. It's only week 2 and non-conference play is already as intense as ever. Welcome back, everybody. I'm your host, Jacob Mata. Joining me as always are our senior reporters, including the wonderful Chloe G. Workman.
Thank you, Mata. And live from the field for our game of the week, Jack Demler joins us from Lincoln County.
York looks to carry their momentum on the road against the reigning state finalist, Newark Catholic. The Green Wave opened their season tonight after last week's matchup against Bishop Reedy was canceled due to poor weather conditions. For Nelsonville York, they're coming off a stellar defensive performance that led to a Week 1 shutout against the TVC hockey champs Trimble. This marquee matchup gives the Buckeyes the chance to prove themselves against the Division 7 powerhouse. I'll have more from our game of the week later tonight.
I'm excited to hear about it. Tonight on the show, we've got 6 games coming your way from all across the region. That includes the game of the week that you just heard about.
And of course, we'll take a sneak peek at our digital games, but for all the coverage, you'll have to check in on us at Gridiron Glory social media over the weekend.
The first game we're going to see tonight is Gallia Academy versus Athens. And Chloe, you were there to take us through it.
Yeah, Mata, this is Cole Carter's second game as the head coach, and he is having a great start to his season.
So, Chloe, you mentioned Gallia Academy's new season with their new head coach. How has this affected the team dynamic?
Well, Mata, last season, this team went through some struggles, but they seem to have bounced back so far. While it is Coach Carter's first season as head coach, he is no stranger to this Blue Devils team. He played there, has been a part of the coaching staff for several seasons, and is now continuing his legacy for Gallia Academy.
We're building a true brotherhood here, and the culture is really changing. It's just a great time to be a part of Blue Devil football.
I'm more passionate about Blue Devil football than anything else, and the kids know it. I show up every day. I'm amped up about it. So I think the most important thing for me is I'm in this community. I've been here. I see the good and the bad, so I try to just take a little bit of both, learn from the bad, and then just continue to push the good. I guess that's my thing here.
The Athens Bulldogs Memorial Field for their home opener. It rained right before the game, so it took both the offenses a whole quarter to get things started due to wet conditions. The Blue Devil offense struck first early in the second with a touchdown from Hunter Shamblin, and it didn't take long for Kenyon Franklin to get on the action either, as he grabs this one from right in between 2 different Bulldogs. He takes this one to the sideline. He avoids the tackle and takes it to the house. Gallia Academy up 14-0. And it didn't take long for the Bulldogs to retaliate as Landon Wheatley lays this one right into the hands of Marcus Stevers. Stevers flexes at speed with a trail of Blue Devils behind him, and he puts Athens on the board. The score now 14-7 with tensions running high. And to top off the first half, check this one out. Brody Faleur lays a dime right into the hands of Connor Rowe to send the Blue Devils to the locker room, and they win this one 38-15.
Now, Chloe, as you mentioned earlier, this team faced a bit of adversity last year.
Yeah, not only did they have 3 COVID cancellations right in a row, they also lost almost half of their squad to COVID-related issues. That's more than any other team in the OVC. This shook up the team's momentum, but they have made the most out of it and came out stronger this year. After a huge win, Gallia
With the pieces this team returns to start their...
They could be competing for an OVC title. We'll see later on.
So, Chloe, tell me a little bit about that Gallia offensive line.
That offensive line was strong tonight. They came out and they showed out, and they were led behind Isaac Clary and Gabe Rayner. They really put a stop to that Athens Bulldogs offense. Now,
would you say that is the factor that contributed the most in order to get Gallia this win?
I'm going to say a combination of that, as well as Brody Faleur. He came out tonight in his home opener for his senior year, and he really did exactly what those Blue Devils needed. And even through those wet conditions, they still were able to get it done.
And can you tell me a little bit about that powerful offensive line Gallia has?
As I mentioned, Isaac Clary he's a big guy. He's 6'8", 310 pounds. It is hard for any defenses or offensives to get through him. We saw that tonight with Athens struggling to get any yards on the ground.
Chloe, this team can compete, but with the pieces this team returns to start their season, they could compete for an OVC title. The team that stands in their way is the Ironton Fighting Tigers, and tonight there was a target on their backs. FAC reporter Zach Mothersbaugh witnessed the Jackson Ironmen seek vengeance against Ironton.
Yeah, Mata, unfortunately for the Ironmen, it looked like they missed the bullseye today. The Ironmen have been looking forward to this game since week 2 of last year when Ty Perkins took a kickoff return to the house after a few laterals to walk it off for the Fighting Tigers.
Martin back to Wilson. They're going to go around the left side. Still at the 25. Pitches it back again. Up to the 30.
Oh,
Look,
my.
Perkins has got some room. He's up to the 45, to the 50. To the 40, to the 30. He's got one man to beat.
Oh, my
Touchdown! Ironton!
Lots of big-time contributors from the game last year are stars for both teams in 2022. All 10 Ironman points came courtesy of Cade Wolford and Ethan Crabtree, while the walk-off touchdown was scored by Ironton star Ty Perkins, who was ranked 24th in the state according to 247 Sports. This game also includes 3 other top 100 players, including Jacob Winters, Trevor Carter, and Jaquez Keys. The talent on the field today cannot be ignored, and both teams play to that potential. Week 2 for the Ironmen started with the ceremony for the seniors as they had an early senior night. In a matchup with 2 high-powered offenses, Jackson decided to come out with an onside kick to start the game, and it was recovered by Bo Landrum, giving the Ironmen possession. With that good field position, Jackson wasted no time putting 7 on the board as Jacob Winters found Brody Butcher down the middle of the field. After Ironton found themselves in a tough position, they knew there was only one person to turn to as Ty Perkins took it down the middle of the field for a touchdown and set him up at the 1, and Jaquez Keys was able to punch it in from there. Then a few familiar faces linked up when Jacob Winters found Brody Butcher in the end zone from 13 yards out to make the score 14-7. On the ensuing possession, Ty Perkins proved when the lights are bright, the stars shine the brightest as he sheds a defender en route to a 53-yard touchdown. Then the first half ended with a Jacob Wood touchdown. Ironman went up 12. After a last-minute interception, the Tigers were able to sneak out with a 29-26 victory. Jackson opened the gates at 5 o'clock for this game, and the stadium was packed.
Now tell me, Zach, how did the crowd impact this game?
Energy was huge for the Ironmen all game, thanks in no small part to the Jackson student section. The school district had received donations that allow all students, elementary through high school, to attend all fall games for free. That should result in a lot of packed stadiums for the Ironmen at home for the rest of the season. Cade Wolford and Jacob Winters are both huge leaders on this.
Cade Wolford and Jacob Winters are both leaders on this team. How did they lead on the field tonight?
While this duo was unable to connect for a score tonight, you could see the impact that they both had. Jacob Winters had a whopping 4 touchdowns in just the first half and showed his prowess on the ground. And Winters was also able to run the ball as we've seen all season. He also made a plethora of throws. Cade Wolford never found the end zone, but he was the main drive mover as the Ironmen turned to give him the ball time and time again. Wolford didn't disappoint as he proved to be a very tough tackle for the Ironton defense.
These teams combined for 40 total points in the first half. What was the key for the offenses?
Both offenses were able to air it out at an elite level the entire first half, and that came with a lot of chunk plays throughout. 5 of the first 6 half touchdowns were scored from 10 or more yards out, and both Ty Perkins and Eli Browerman scored one from 50 yards out. Both teams will need these explosive offenses to travel with them next week as they try to get a win on the road.
Thanks for the great work, as always, Zach. Well, these teams were always competitive, and both are off to a competitive start to the season. But that hasn't been the case for all of our consistent contenders, especially for John Glenn and Bloom Carroll. Joining us now is MSL reporter Maria Manessi to talk about the important impact matchup between the Bulldogs and the Muskies.
Mata, these two teams stand out in their respective divisions, but both suffered season-opening losses. Neither of these powerhouses are used to losing, and certainly neither of them want to start 0-2. Bloom Carroll hasn't opened the season with 2 losses in a row since 2011. And although John Glenn started 0-2 last season, they went on to win 6 straight games. These teams are looking to redefine themselves this season and can start with a win tonight. It was a battle of 2 teams hungry for a win at Carroll Stadium. The Bulldogs took matters in their own hands off the bat, forcing a 3-and-out to start things off. A few runs from Andrew Marshall had the Bulldogs moving down the field fast and early. And what better way to complete the drive than this 3-yard touchdown run from who other than Chase Plants? The Muskies respond with passes like this one and plays later like this one to get into the red zone. But Broden Bishop said not so fast as he intercepts this pass attempt and the Bulldogs take back possession. Dylan Armitrout takes it 56 yards to the Muskies' 5-yard line, and on 4th and 1, Chase Plants takes it to the house, and the Bulldogs are up 14-0. This 37-yard gain had the Muskies on the Bulldog 1-yard line. Moments later, Lincoln Glitcher runs it in for the Muskies' first score of the game. Ethan Thanthanavong responds on the Bulldogs' drive and takes it past the goal line for the 8-yard touchdown, making it 21-6. Bloom Carroll continued to make big plays in the second half, both offensively and defensively, and took this one 28-12.
Now, Maria, both teams dropped their Week 1 matchups. How did Bloom Carroll find their groove tonight?
Mata, the team chemistry the Bulldogs were missing last week finally came to life on the field tonight. The Bulldogs came into this one playing on their A game off the bat. They knew what they needed to do to execute plays on both sides of the ball in order to get their first victory.
Now, neither team could get into a fluid rhythm last week. What was different tonight?
Mata, the Bulldogs forcing a 3-and-out right off the bat really got the momentum flowing for them. Flipping to the offensive side, players who the Bulldogs needed to see more of this week really stepped up and filled the weaknesses from last week.
Now, Maria, who was the guy for Bloom Carroll in this win?
Chase Plants really stepped up for the Bulldogs tonight. Being one of the leaders for the Bulldogs, it was important for Plants to have a night, and he finished with 30 yards and 2 back-to-back touchdowns on the night.
Bloom Carroll gave up 20 points last week. How did the Bulldogs adjust this go-around?
Consistent defensive stops was a common theme that Bloom Carroll lacked last week, but tonight was a different story. The defense limited the Muskies to just 12 points, and big plays like this interception from Broden Bishop had the crowd going crazy.
Now, Maria, even though John Glenn didn't come out on top in this one, I'm sure they still had some high points.
Mata, the Muskies were able to complete big plays like this dime to continue sticking with the Bulldogs, but they ultimately struggled to stop them, especially in the red zone.
It sounds like tonight the Bulldogs got right back on track. As for the Muskies, they're still searching for that first win. Thanks for the great work, Maria. This is not the norm for John Glenn. They've finished in the top 3 of the MVL for the last 5 seasons, including a second-place finish last season. But at this pace, the MVL Big Division is wide open, and the Maysville Panthers are threatening after a strong start to the year. MVL reporter Bryce Tinson saw the Big Division's dark horse take on the rising New Lexington Panthers from the MVL Small.
Yeah, Mata. It was the battle of the Panthers in Perry County tonight.
Both teams were so dominant last game that this matchup became must-see. Maysville put up 356 yards in a 35-7 win over small school reigning champs Meadowbrook. That opens up the small division for New Lex, who went for 467 yards in their opener last week.
For Maysville, it was the three-headed monster of Alex Bob, Hayden Jarrett, and Wesley Armstead. They were responsible for all 5 Maysville touchdowns.
New Lex QB Lucas Ratliff was unbelievable in his first varsity start, going for 22 for 26, 378 yards, and 5 total TDs.
Maysville utilized the 3-3-5 last week to slow down Meadowbrook. Would it work against Ratliff and the high-powered New Lex offense? Revenge was on Maysville's mind tonight. They lost to New Lex last season for the first time since 2008. Both teams started out punting, but on New Lex's second drive, they were able to march all the way down to the 10-yard line. And then it was Ratliff to Tatum Toth. This Toth fights his way into the end zone. 2-point conversion good, 8-0 New Lex. After that, it became the Hunter Rose show. Check him out on this 33-yard run, making a move, breaking a tackle. He's going to waltz into the end zone. He puts New Lex up 15-0 halfway through the second. Then with a minute left in the half, New Lex puts the ball in Rose's hands again. Get this man on your fantasy team. He was a machine tonight. That's his second score of the game. The scoring wasn't over, as on the last play of the first half, Ratliff unloads a prayer. It looks like it's going to be picked, but not so fast. Jarek Braglin rips it out of the DB's hands and muscles his way into the end zone. It was a dominant offensive performance for New Lex as they went on to win 38-18.
So Maysville's 3-3-5 defense did a great job of slowing down Meadowbrook's spread offense last week. What was the difference? What was the defensive scene look like this week?
They ran the 3-3-5 again, and it worked for a while, but after some adjustments, New Lex was able to figure it out. Initially, the 3-3-5 gave New Lex problems, but once they started putting pressure on the 3-down linemen, they moved the ball with ease. This defense was that shut down Meadowbrook last week, but had no such luck tonight against this gritty New Lex offense.
You mentioned Maysville's 3-headed monster during the preview. What impact did they have on today's game?
Mata, I have to give props to the New Lex defense. They were flying around and making plays everywhere you looked. They were able to keep Hayden Jarrett at bay while also containing Alex Bob in the pocket. This was an offense that had its way last week, but was relatively shut down in this one.
So Bryce, what does that mean for both of these teams going forward?
This is a huge win for New Lex. It firmly cements them as a contender and maybe even the favorite in the small school division. They are a serious threat, and anyone that has them on their schedule better watch out. Doesn't matter if it's a big school or a small school, New Lex is coming. For Maysville, this is an early season setback, but it gives them a look at what they need to work on to put themselves in a position to compete for the big school title.
We will see how Maysville fares next week as they take on Coshocton. As for New Lex, they take on John Glenn at home in an MVL Big Small Cross Division matchup. Thanks for the great work, Bryce. Now we saw New Lex take on Maysville, and as you guys can see, the fans were right, taking 56% of the vote. And remember, you guys can vote from home on our Instagram page Thursday evenings on who you think will win the games we cover. Now we move to a game with two powerhouses. One is trying to get their first win, and the other is coming off a huge victory. So did Trimble seal the deal in the TVC Hawking? Reporter Haley Hollins will join us. And Haley, the first game, home game, is always the biggest for Tomcat fans. What did that feel like inside of the stadium?
Mata, the Trimble fans were rip-roaring and ready for River. The energy was high in Gloucester, and fans tailgated 2 hours ahead of game time, hungry for a victory after last week's loss. The Tomcats haven't given up on a game won since 2017, and they haven't lost their first 2 home games since 2017. But River's quarterback, Cable Isley, could change that. In the Pilots game last week against Marietta, Isley passed for 245 yards compared to Trimble's 21. Isley got a couple of touchdowns for the Pilots in their game last Friday, but Trimble proved to be a better measuring stick than Marietta. Trimble and River came ready to rock. Both teams showed their strong points early. The Pilots had the first possession and began chipping away. A few yards here, a 5-yard rush there, but the Tomcats hung tight. On a 3rd and 14, Cable Isley was brought down by Trimble's Landon Hardy, but it takes more than a sack to keep the Pilots down. On a 3rd down, Isley threw a bullet to Ty Long for a 16-yard rush, Long jumping between Tomcats and into the end zone for the first points of the game. Trimble got the ball back and ran into penalty problems as well as a fumble that would put them back. But the Tomcats defense was a true shining point throughout the game. They gave up another touchdown before the end of the half. Isley threw to receiver River Thompson from the 31-yard line, and Thompson crashed through the Tomcat D-line and into the red zone, giving them a 14-point cushion. The Pilots would go on to keep scoring in the second half of the game, standing up to that tough Trimble defense. And even though Trimble would score 3 touchdowns of their own, they fell short, River winning it all with a final score of 28-18.
We haven't seen Trimble go 0-2 in a very long time.
Yeah, Jacob, the Tomcats have been a force in the TVC Hawking, but they haven't started this season off the way they were hoping to.
You know, Haley, the Tomcats haven't lost a home opener since 2017, and did Rivers' quarterback have anything to do with the destruction of that stat?
Mata, Rivers quarterback Cable Isley made this game personal. Isley made big plays where it mattered, and he constantly distributed to giving the ball to guys like Ty Long and River Thompson. And of course, Isley was a big player, but what was really noticeable in this game was the amount of teamwork they showed. And these guys were always working for each other and their team. And it definitely paid off in their win tonight.
Now, what does this win mean for the trajectory of River's season, and what does this loss mean for Trimble's?
Yeah, well, this win for River, it really just proves that they can do it again, and that they are going to keep doing it. Trimble has always had a reputation as a powerhouse, as a football team in the Hawking, and even though they may not be where they once were, they are still great, and this was still a great win against a tough defense at that. So River was able to show off their potential offensively, and they definitely have a lot more to show us later on in this season. The loss for Trimble really highlights what they need to get better at. There were a lot of details that they missed tonight, and it really cost them. Between the penalties and the flags, there were a lot of lost yards. If they could fix the little things, it would really fare well for this team.
Yeah, Haley, Rivers showed out tonight against a historically dominant Trimble, proving they are a force to be reckoned with. Thanks for the great work. Our game of the week still lies ahead, but we'll have even more football action from our digital games this weekend. But until then, we send things over to Chloe to give you a sneak peek of the highlights.
Jacob, we've got reporters at 5 games tonight for digital content, plus one more game is getting special coverage. But for now, we're going to start in Belmont County. We just saw one all-star quarterback from the OVAC, and how about another? Shenandoah freshman quarterback Braxton Barnett has started the season off on a high note. He threw for 322 yards in the first half of his varsity debut, setting the school's single-game passing record. and he did it again against the reigning league champs Shadyside, leading things to a 38-20 win. Our next game, Morgan travels to Warren. Morgan picked up the win against Riverview in week 1, which is the first time this squad has won their home opener in 15 years, and now that makes 2 wins. The Raiders have built an aggressive offense, but they got it done tonight in a close matchup. Morgan ended up taking the win 28-24. While those 2 teams started off the year strong, these next 2 have struggled. Notre Dame fell just short in their season opener, while Bern Union performed well below expectations in a 6-43 loss against Colgrove. Both of these teams were looking for win number 1, and the Rockets got the job done. The Bern Union defense shut down and held the Titans to just 14. Our next matchup is an interesting one. These 2 schools are only separated by 4 miles, Portsmouth and Portsmouth West. The Trojans have dominated this matchup for several years, but this year West took the crown after a Portsmouth touchdown in the opening drive. West shut them out, taking this one 34-7. And finally, Heath versus Licking Valley. Although these 2 teams haven't seen each other since 2019, a majority of Heath players said this was the #1 game they were looking forward to. Unfortunately for the Bulldogs, Licking Valley took this one 28-15.
Now, Chloe, you mentioned one more game is getting special coverage. What's the deal with that?
Yamada, on Saturday at noon, the Bel Air Big Reds welcome the Fort Fry Cadets. Their stadium is still undergoing renovations to add lights, so for now, the home games are being played on Saturdays.
Fort Fry has been the top seed in their region for the last 2 years, but Bel Air moved down to Division 6, entering the same region as Fort Fry. If Bel Air can capture the win, they're in the driver's seat to take over the region.
Fort Fry's Braxton Brown and Bel Air's Ray Pettigrew will line up against each other on both sides of the ball as receiver and defensive back.
Excited to see how that matchup turns out, but the outcome to the game is anyone's guess. It's the first time these teams have been played in the 21st century.
And remember, for full coverage on these games, check us out on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram at Gridiron Glory, and now you can even find some behind-the-scenes footage from us from the show on TikTok. And don't worry, if you missed a game and you want the highlights, we've got you covered. Find us on WOUB.org/gridiron for all written content and game recaps.
And now, here we go. Game of the week, Nelsonville York and Newark Catholic. Jack Demler rejoins the show for this week's unique storyline behind the blooming rivalry.
Thanks, Jacob. There have been some great games of football this week, but this game, now believe me when I say, I've been waiting for this game all week. For Nelsonville York, it's week 2. But for Newark Catholic, this is their first game of the regular season after their week 1 was canceled. It's the Green Wave's first chance to work out the kinks of their playbook and see their new starting quarterback in action. On the Buckeyes side, they're looking to ride the defense's momentum after their shutout victory against TVC rival Trimble. Can they carry it on the road to conquer the Division 7 state finalists? It would be another big test for the Buckeyes.
Well, it's their home opener for Newark Catholic, but the Green Wave doesn't have a game day field to call their own. That's why the community has established an annual tradition to celebrate every home game.
It's a fantastic tradition. I experienced 3 years of walking down, hand in hand with your teammates. I get emotional even talking about it because you were so dialed in. But I can tell you that by the time we got to the stadium, we were ready to kick somebody's and it was on. And I still remember that. I remember it every freaking day. Because if somebody hates you that much, that's because they're jealous of your success. And that's 100% true about Newark Catholic football. When you're part of it, okay, it becomes even more special, and you can 100% see it in the players' eyes.
And this year, we really wanted to be shown as a whole community. We collectively come together for this tailgate. I mean, everybody has a role here. You know, the senior motto is do your 111th, and we're doing our 112th off the field.
I think it's nice that we come together so when the boys walk in, they see the importance of the unity and that we're a team. It's not about how many minutes I play or this and that. It's about winning.
And as Newark Catholic faithful made their march to the field, the Green Wave began their march toward a state title. And let's get into it. Newark Catholic coming out hungry and wasting no time getting on the board first. Mason Hackett in the Wildcat formation would juke his defender and bully his way into the end zone from 12 yards out 3 minutes into the game. Now fast forward, and Hackett would get the outside pitch and bulldoze over the defender to tally his second touchdown with 5 minutes left in the first quarter. Green Wave up 14-0. Miller Hutchinson says, I went in on some of the action. He drops back to pass, looking to go deep, and delivers a beautiful 39-yard pass in stride to Grant Moore to go up 3 scores. Jump to the second quarter on the Green Wave's first play. Hutchinson finds Moore again on the wide receiver screen, and Moore is going to turn on the burners and get more out of it. Down the far sideline for a 55-yard touchdown. Hackett says, I have to get home early and watch Gridiron Glory. From the goal line, he takes the handoff and finds pay dirt for the 3rd time tonight, this time from 3 yards out. Now call that a Hackett hat trick. The Green Wave drowned the Buckeyes to go on to win 45-0.
Now, Jack, Nelsonville York had a monster defensive performance last week, but things seemed to fall flat against Newark Catholic. How was the Green Wave able to drown the Buckeyes' defense?
Jacob, last week, the Buckeyes had 21 total tackles for loss. But tonight, it was a different story. And it all starts with the men in the trenches. The Green Wave offensive line was a force to be reckoned with, forcing open holes to allow the run game to develop and keeping NY's defensive line at bay to give Hutchinson enough time in the pocket to go through all his progressions and deliver to his receivers.
And they did so under a new quarterback. How was he able to crack the Buckeyes' defense?
Well, thanks to the O-line, Hutchinson did have plenty of time in the pocket, and he wasn't afraid to air it out. Hutchinson developed a good pocket presence and executed well. The Buckeyes held Trimble to under 30 passing yards last week. However, tonight, Hutchinson delivered 2 touchdowns and 179 passing yards on 9 for 16 passing.
And what about the man in the backfield? Mason Hackett was on first-team All-State last season. What role did he play for the Green Wave tonight, Jack?
Jacob Hackett was an elusive and dominant force for the Green Wave all night. This is his 2nd year back playing football after playing AAA hockey on the Blue Jackets 16U team. And tonight, he established his presence early, opening the first drive with 5 carries, 60 yards, and topping it off with a touchdown. He ended the night with 12 carries, 113 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Hackett and the Green Wave offense showed no sign of rust despite last week's cancellation and showed they are still a threat in Division 7. This Newark Catholic squad looked hungry and could show signs of another potential deep run in the playoffs. As for the Buckeyes, they'll look to regroup as they get ready to take on Liberty Union.
We will see if Nelsonville can bounce back, and if Newark Catholic can stay hot, we will see.
Now, Jack, why don't you tell me about that crazy Newark Catholic defense?
Yeah, Jacob, we talked about how explosive the offense was, but don't count out that Newark Catholic defense. They were on top of it all night, not allowing the Buckeyes to have much running room as they would force their way into the backfield, wreaking havoc for Makai Williams and all their running game. Nelsonville York seemed to have their way last week against Trimble, especially offensively, especially with Leighton Logie with his 2 catches for 84 yards. But this week, Nelsonville York did not have much going offensively, and that's all thanks to Newark Catholic's defense.
Now, what do you think is coming up next for Nelsonville York?
Next NY game, as I mentioned, they take on Liberty Union. They're just going to need to regroup their defense and offense. Makai Williams is going to need to regroup his pocket presence, and Leighton Logie is going to need to have another standout game in order for Nelsonville York to take that one as we head into conference play.
And that's a wrap on week 2. Lots of exciting stories ahead after tonight's results.
We'll have you covered the whole way, so stay tuned to Gridiron Glory on WOUB and social media. But until then, check out our Facebook and our website at woub.org. But until then, remember, there's nothing better than Friday nights and Gridiron Glory.